Results Act did not show the same return on investment. I believe in making government work, and that means your philosophy is try to get the money, the programs in this case, that will allow us to serve the most students with the most loans to have the most affordable education. And that's the same philosophy that I'm going to continue to bring to every challenge. Not just what is the intention of the program, but can we hold these government programs accountable for results, and can we compare the return on investment across programs, across level of government. Yeah.
To expand on what you just said, what would be your solution? Because the Perkins loans protects about 700,000 students and actually allows them to go to school. What would you actually replace the Perkins program with, rather than having a discussion? How about we talk about the real reality that 700,000 students actually use these loans every day to get into college, particularly lower income?
Well, expanding the discussion even beyond just Perkins, because Perkins is an important part of the entire matrix of making funding available for students to afford their college education. What I proposed in the Free to Be plan is to open up more competition for student loans in the marketplace so that students have a multitude of options to finance education. Second, refinancing those student loans. While you're in college, in many of these loans, you don't have to pay your principal and interest, but as soon as you walk out the door, you're hit with those repayment terms. My reform plan includes flexibilities so that you can refinance your loan so it can be more affordable. If you have big banks saying that they cannot refinance because of legal and accounting rules, then change the darn rules so that we can create a more flexible marketplace where people can refinance. I want to open up the student loan program also to small community banks and credit unions. We've lost that sort of competition. I want to create more competition for refinancing terms by creating a digital exchange, a clearinghouse online, where different lenders can bid for your loan in providing you more favorable repayment terms, more flexible payment terms. All these reforms eventually, and taken in concert, will make college education more affordable, will make it more realistic to actually pay off your loans without, in many cases, going bankrupt. We saw that the Consumer Financial Bureau, federal government, came out with a report showing several 100,000 loans in default. That's a crisis, and so we need to create the reforms necessary that allows people the flexibility to refinance and afford to continue to pay the debt service and not ruin their credit. Yeah.
On your second point about being free to be who you are, where do you stand on INDA? They voted to end the culture, or begin culture, I don't remember exactly how that works today in the Senate. Where would you vote for it if you were in the House? Would you pressure the leader to bring it to the floor, or against it, in between?
My philosophy has always been, stop with the divisive social issues, let's put them to rest, and refocus on fiscal, economic, and accountability reforms. I was thrilled when the Supreme Court came out with an unequivocal statement that marriage equality was an issue of equal protection under the law. And I believe that our civil rights statutes today, as written, when you look at the decision of the Supreme Court this year on marriage equality, would extend equal protection under the law across the board to all of our federal statutes. So I actually believe it's already the law. But to make sure that there's a fine point, an exclamation point, that we have equality under the law, and that there shall be no discrimination, absolutely. I think that ENDA is the right thing to do. And I don't believe in the Hastert rule, where you say that you limit the ability for the majority of one chamber to get a vote on legislation that a majority supports. When I was on the city council, what frustrated me for the first 2 years is that we would offer ideas, and we wouldn't even be able to get a debate. We wouldn't even be able to call the question on the idea. I knew I might lose the vote, but I was just wondering, hey, can I actually offer the bill, and can we get a recorded vote so the public knows where these individuals stand on this issue? And maybe the public actually supports this bill and would be upset with their representatives if they knew that they voted against it. For the first 2 years, by and large, I was not able to get those votes. I was only a member of a 2-member minority on an 8-member council, so a 2-6 minority majority split. Donna Fry and I worked together to try to raise this issue time and time again. Thank goodness when Tony Young became council president, a Democrat, he said, Carl, I'm going to give you the opportunity to offer your ideas and get a vote on your ideas. Lo and behold, we started offering ideas and getting bipartisan votes. Democrats and Republicans coming together to vote on ideas that San Diegans overwhelmingly support. And so I actually believe in open government, the ability to offer ideas and ask for the question to be voted on. So I think the major challenge I'm concerned about is the hash ripple on a lot of good policies that are out there that are just not able to see the light of day. Open government should never be something that people oppose. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to point out what you said in the previous statement about how you want student loans to go to like the private sector and have that opportunity to be able to put your things online, and that's exactly what Obamacare does. Obamacare actually puts all the insurance companies on online. I know it's not working at the moment. I'll grant you that. But they said it will be up, which the open enrollment is open until March 15th.
You might have more success with stone tablets and chisels than the rails guy.
But regardless of the fact that it is going to be an operational system, it has to. And the idea is that the open marketplace allows the free market to work. So if you're for the free market for student loans, why are you against the free market for healthcare and Obamacare?
I wouldn't characterize my position on healthcare reform as against the free market. Actually, quite the contrary, is harnessing the market and giving the consumer more choices, more control of their healthcare, and trying to get government and big insurance companies out of the conversation between doctors and their patients as to what quality of care each patient deserves. And so I would just respectfully disagree with the premise of your question. I don't think it actually reflects my position whatsoever. Yeah, go ahead.
With regards to Obamacare, you said that we were going to be hosed by the Affordable Care Act?
Yeah, the younger generation will be paying more for the cost of health insurance, and you're seeing it right now. We see people losing their coverage because it doesn't, quote, comply with what the government feels you should have to pay for, and the premiums have gone up significantly. I saw in the Wall Street Journal today a report, I think it was like, 41%, 42% increase in premium costs nationwide, according to a recent study. Obamacare is a philosophy where government decides for you what you should have. So, for example, under Obamacare, a 62-year-old woman has to carry coverage for pregnancy. How logical is that? Unless there's immaculate conception here, unless something miraculous happens, it's not something that reflects an efficient and accessible and affordable healthcare system. And so there are a lot of other reforms that I want to see put in place that I think the American people would agree with. How about we start with some simple things? Let's allow people to buy health insurance across state lines. Do you know that you can get a life insurance policy across state lines? Why not health insurance across state lines? Well, that's right. The health insurance lobbyists years ago decided they didn't want interstate competition, and so they wrote that into the bill. If you take a look at Obamacare, some of those same sacred cows are still being protected. Big business, big insurance, getting a skip. Take a look at individual mandate versus employer mandate. The companies got a free hall pass for a year, a delay in employer mandate. Individuals, not so much, because maybe they don't have high-priced lobbyists in Washington always knocking on people's doors. They will have to pay a penalty if they don't enroll, if they don't have the coverage. And a lot of them won't know about this because it has not been well understood until they fill out their tax forms and they're required by the IRS to show proof of insurance in filing their taxes. And I believe by that point you can't even buy insurance because there is an open enrollment period that ends. So you will be stuck paying a penalty tax. Oh, but your employer gets off for a year. They get the hall pass. Nothing about this is fair. And you can't, as a Democrat, blindly decide to support a bad idea. Just as I'm going to call out Republicans when they blindly support bad ideas on their side. So it's time to have a real conversation. Not a politicized conversation, but a real conversation. And you guys are the ones that should be challenging. If you're a Democrat, you should challenge the Democrat Party. If you're a Republican, I'm asking you to join me and challenge the Republican Party. If you're an independent, challenge both of the parties. But don't allow them to play the games they've played in the past. Because it's not solving our problems. Yes, sir.
What about the personal responsibility? Like if someone doesn't sign up for health insurance and, you know, something happens to them where they're not going to be able to pay their bills, who pays for that?
I think if we get real healthcare reform, if someone chooses not to sign up for health insurance, under our solutions, healthcare will be far more affordable if they do have something happen to them. When you implement tort reform, when you implement more competition, when you embrace medical innovation and technology so that doctors are actually able to have the best technology and the best treatments to deal with the challenges of their patients, when you create transparency like I'm proposing, where if you go into a doctor's office and you get that x-ray I talked about earlier, same arm, same x-ray machine, different price for Medicare, different price for the health insurance company, and different price if I were just paying out of pocket. You know that? Same procedure, same arm, same scan. If I were under Medicare, I'd get one bill. If I were under health insurance, I would get a different price. If I were just uninsured and I walked in and said, hey, I had something wrong, so can you bill me? So what I'm proposing is that we have a healthcare transparency rule that requires that your doctor disclose the lowest price they have charged in the last 2 years on that same procedure. And then maybe we can actually set up a real exchange, a real data portal, where you can go on and say, okay, I know I need to get an x-ray. And wonder what the lowest cost provider is within a geographic area. Here's what the doctor says I need. Who wants to bid on it? Do you think that if we opened up transparency of the pricing and allowed you to go online and have some sort of marketplace that you get lower prices? Think that would happen? I think it would happen. We see this happening in all other aspects. So I would actually challenge the private sector to come up with some of those portals. Because I certainly don't want HHS and Kaplan Civilians to try to create a website. I don't think it would ever happen. Any questions from folks up here? Because I've given the Democrat operatives a whole lot of time. I want to make sure I'm not shortchanging anyone. Any ideas? I'm particularly interested in ideas that you think, if you had the opportunity to put an idea in my hand, to take to Congress, to fight for that idea, what would it be? Yeah, go
I
ahead.
actually have a question.
All right, go ahead.
It's from your handout here.
Yep.
You have the no budget, no pay, which, to be completely honest, I think is fabulous. I think that a lot of different parties can agree on that. I think it's ridiculous that you don't do your job and you get paid for it. But how would you get it passed? Because you have a lot of congressmen who are up there who really, really enjoy the way they have a 126-day work year and get paid to not do anything. How are you going to fight them? How are you going to fight the lobbyists? How are you, I mean, how do you get it done? How is it at all realistic?
This is one of the things that I'm most passionate about, which is I don't think you can get better outcomes from Washington unless you start by fixing Congress first. It's broken. And it's a whole cultural problem that we've got to address. Of members of Congress who think that they're above the law. So the Fix Congress First plan is about changing the culture of Congress to make it more transparent, more accountable. First, Congress shall pass no law that it does not comply with itself. How many laws have we seen them exempt themselves from? Obamacare, giving them a special status that others don't receive. Every law passed by Congress shall be applied and enforced upon Congress. Second, transparency. On the city council, one of my favorite laws was the open records law. As a taxpayer watchdog, I always used it to get documents from government. Under California state law, Public Records Act request means that you can go to a government agency and say, I demand to see your books. I demand to see this, that, and the other thing. Congress has exempted itself from the federal version of that, the Freedom of Information Act.
That public records thing on the state level,
Yeah.
that's not anything like government code sections 111, 20, and 54, 50, is it?
I'm not sure what the exact citation is, but tell me more about that code.
Well, as I understand it, it involves the public policy of this state saying that government cannot really decide what we have the right to now and what we don't have the right to now. That sounds similar to the Public Records Act thing you're talking about.
The Public Records Act says that any government document can be requested by a member of the public at any time. And there's an actual deadline that the government agency has to comply with. Unfortunately, there's no penalty if the agency doesn't do it. And that's been my biggest problem with the California version of this law. You have to know that the government agency is withholding the information, which means that you had to already, in essence, have it in your pocket. And then you have to sue, and you can go to the court, and the judge can order the agency to comply. There's no sanction for not doing this. Bob Filner was the biggest abuser of open government. He basically ignored open government requests. Well, in Congress, they've gone one step further than even Bob Filner. Maybe this is where he learned it. They exempted themselves explicitly from the Freedom of Information Act, which says that you can go to any federal agency and say, show me the memos associated with your decision here. Show me the records or the documents associated with your denial of this claim. They have to provide it to you. You go to Congress and say, show me the records. Who did you meet with in writing this legislation? You don't have to comply because we exempted ourselves from FOIA. And so open government, we would apply the Freedom of Information Act there. The 72-hour rule. This is where Congress people come in and say, we just negotiated the bill. It just got out here, literally hot off the presses. Nancy Pelosi said, we don't need to read the bill, we just need to pass it and then we'll find out. She actually said that. My requirement would be that if you're not going to read the bill, at least give us, the public, the opportunity to read the bill. No legislation shall pass Congress, shall be voted on, until there is a 72-hour public noticing and disclosure online. Full text. You want to do amendments? Put all the amendments online so the public can weigh in and respond. If you're not going to read the bill, at least let us read the bill. And then changing the perks, no gifts, no free travel. In August, right before the government shutdown, members of Congress took $1.8 million in free travel to junkets all around the world. Sorry, no more free lunch. No free travel. If you are on a fact-finding mission, get it approved by a House committee. Force members of Congress to actually vote to send you to the Bahamas if they think it's that important. Because then I think it'd be hard for them to defend that vote back home. But if they wanted to send you to Iraq to do a fact-finding mission or Afghanistan, I think the American people would say, yeah, I think it's important for members of Congress to go over into an area where we have conflict and figure out what's really going on. Accountability is achieved that way. They give themselves health care and pension benefits that you and I don't get. No. You're in Social Security and Medicare. Maybe at that point they'd actually be interested in making this thing work, making it solvent. And then some of the other reforms that we've put in place kind of deal with procedural challenges in Congress. And you raised the best question. How are you going to do this? You're going to be the skunk at the garden party if you go back and try changing their nice sweetheart deals. That's the same question I was asked when I walked door to door in running for council. They said, how can one person make a difference down in that cesspool of City Hall? Yet we went down there, and at a time when people predicted the bankruptcy of our city, I wrote a plan that solved our financial crisis